I think people still misunderstand your body weight manipulation when you were competing. As far as
maybe,
and
there's an example.
Yeah,
right?
it is, and it reminded me, looking through that article as well, because you pointed it out then. The idea of gaining the weight, moving up the weight classes, was to get stronger.
Right.
It's the easier way, and then to come down is to see how much strength you can hold, because there, as you said, there's no law that says that you should lose strength.
No.
So if you can get it up there, maintain it. Yeah. But this was if you look at it from, a far view, it's a very long, periodized, long progression.
Many times around. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could even look back and say there's a quadrennial, maybe even more in there of how this whole thing cycled.
Yeah.
And the purpose behind that. Mm-hmm. So they just see the two ends, the high ends of the swing. Here's where you got to basically force feed and kill yourself because you got to, get to 312 pounds. And as you said, eat like a 312 pound person.
Yeah, that's a lot of food.
Or over here on this end, you're sucking yourself to oblivion.
Dry,
to be one night. But people want to focus here. And I think they're missing the whole
process.
The whole problem, where that swing goes actually all the way around. It goes all the way around.
Yeah, it's moving back and forth.
So what got you to think that this was going to be the best journey for you to take with the bench press?
Oh, that's easy. It's so a lot of my decisions and a lot of my beliefs about life are based in biology. So I got science and biology and how the body works and physiology. And here's the thing that happens when you put down muscle. You make new contractile elements out of proteins. They're structural in nature. They're part of your body. Whereas cardiovascular fitness is more enzymatic, and you make enzymes every day and then they get burned up and you got to make more. And so high cardiovascular fitness comes from an oversupply of the enzymes that do the Krebs cycle and release energy from fatty acid metabolism. But the contractile elements for strength, when you lose weight and you're burning fat, you don't lose. They don't tear down. They don't just disappear because they're structural. They're made and they're there and they stay there. And when you lose the fat, you're burning energy. They stay there. So as you said, there's no law. Not only is there not any law, when you burn all that fat off, you still have the muscle you made. Now it's not fully supplied with energy, so when you crash diet, you lose some top end strength because there's not as much glycogen, not as much fluid.
Leverage.
But that turns around in the first week. Mm-hmm. When you start force feeding again, you have almost all of the strength that you got up to when you put the tissue on, because you put on muscle and you put on fat, and then you just lost fat. And all those contractile elements are still there that you can use for strength. And then you can put more on. So every time I went up, I put on muscle and fat. Every time I came down, I basically lost just fat. So every time I started over again from 220, I started with more muscle and more muscle and more muscle every time, and more strength. So it was about, how do I gain strength, not necessarily muscle, because the bigger the muscle is, probably the stronger it will be.
Well, it's also going to make it harder for you to get to that bottom class.
It does. I got leaner and leaner.
Yes.
Yeah. The last couple of times were tough. But the first year I got down to 198 a couple of times.
Yeah. See,
I got bench 465 at 198.
That becomes that problem when you put on 10 more pounds of muscle the next time you go down through.
Yeah. And that was the idea behind why I stopped training legs. I had to keep getting down to 220. And I'm like, why am I training my legs so hard? I don't really use those to bench, so I don't really need them to be so strong. Why am I training them? And that's when I tried to do some overtraining with them to kind of burn them down on the bike and cardio, and that was fairly successful. I got rid of some, but it was harder every time to come down. That's for sure. But it was easier to get up. And every time I came up, I superseded the strength level I was at. at each weight class,
Mm-hmm.
each 10 pounds. I was stronger than I was last time I was here. And so by doing that, and so it has a physiological basis in biology. When you don't tear down the structure of your body, it's still there for using when you feed it and hydrate it back, and reestablish that high level of skill. But that's not hard. Week, 2 weeks, you're right back. And people call it like muscle memory, or I know they have names for it, but everybody knows. I call it re-achieving where you've been. But everybody knows it's not hard to come back from and do something you've already done. It's hard to go into a new place and do something you've never done, and that's hard. But it's easy to get back to where you were after, a diet. Very easy. So that was the general principle of it. But that's bodybuilding too. Those 60s bodybuilders out at Venice Beach, they bulk and cut. And they did it seasonally, usually, but they did the same thing. Bulk up, cut up, bulk up, cut up. Every time. Growing.
So with that, I mean, because these were, you were in Westside when you were kind of doing a lot of this stuff. They were long. I mean, we're talking a year period of time for the people that don't understand the duration of what we're talking. Now, some of the drops are faster than that. So,
I did
some
them
were
as
pretty
fast as possible.
freaking radical.
Yeah, did them as fast as possible.
Yes.
But usually, certainly one a year, sometimes twice a year.
That's what I'm saying, that full turnaround, getting back, down and up, because the drop was fast. Like you would get up.
Right, because I want to get strong
and
again.
Then, yes, it dropped down fast, then it came back up.
Yeah.
Where there's, even with that 6 month period of time, it's was there a big part of you that, as you just said, you wanted to get back up? Because that's the funnest
I wanted to get
one.
strong, yeah.
The strong one.
There's suffering when you're dieting.
Yeah, and well, there's patience too. Because you got 6 months here.
I was fairly impatient.
Yeah, well, you have to be though. So how did you work with that? Because you want to get down, because I'm saying the patience, let's say you're at the top 308 and it's a 605, just whatever it was. You really want that 620, whatever it's going to be. But you're going to have to go all the way down
and come back
all the way up. And that could be 6 months, whatever it's going to be. You got to, meanwhile, you really want that 620.
Right.
So where's that patience come from?
I think I was able to placate the impatience a little bit, because as I went back up each weight class, I was setting personal records for where I was. So I didn't have to wait to get all the way up to get a record. So I had a record at 308, 275, 242, 220. And then each time I got to a new class, I was able to try for a record for me in that class. And sometimes a world record or a state record, sometimes the record, but certainly my record. And every time I came back up, I never skipped back up classes without having something to show for it. So that it's not like I had to wait all the way till I got back to the top to do something with it. I was doing something all the way, every step of the way. So it wasn't as long. I didn't need as much patience maybe as it might seem. So I didn't have to wait till I get all the way here and then go for the big 620, right? I was getting something. I was getting a little bit of reward each step of the way.